Hey everyone, Egman here with another video, and today we have a top 32 breakdown for the Cartomagica online regionals that happened this past weekend. It was just under 1,000 players, 10 rounds of Swiss into this top 32 that we see here today. And a couple of things before we get started. First, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. It really does help the growth of the channel and means that you guys are excited for more One Piece content in the future. And if you guys want any of the deck lists from today or any other major event in the OP08 meta, make sure to check out my website, Egman Events, which is linked below, and we're going to continue to update this as well since we're going to 8.5 right after this weekend as well. So I know it is like the end of this meta, and that, you know, a lot of people are already, even like at the beginning of this month, people are like, I don't know if we want to look at 8.5 or, you know, 8 vanilla. We want to look at the star deck cards and the decks that it can produce as well. And we're finally there, and this is kind of the last weekend for it. So we're going to go over the deck list, but I do want to say that we're going to kind of have the look at like the context of like what it's going to change going into 8.5, either just like some matchups that might be a little bit worse for some decks with some new decks entering the meta, are also some new card pool changes and that kind of stuff as well. So I also want to mention that there was a huge event in Europe. There was a finals there that I currently don't have the deck list as of this recording. I will do my best to get those as soon as possible and on the website. I know that it's like the last big event of the format, but I do want to try to record it as best as I can. And then we are getting again into 8.5. We already have an event right now, so we have a store regionals from superheroes, cards, comics, and games, so you can check that out. We won't be going over these lists in this video, but you guys will be seeing more 8.5 on the website, including my own event that I'm hosting this Tuesday as well. But jumping on into this one, we do have 32 leaders, which are 8 of the purple Luffy, which I think is pretty remarkable. This leader, like generally, I think the topping leader for every regionals from up to this point has either been Lucci or Black Yellow Luffy. It's usually been one of those two, and so to see Purple Luffy being so present and the most present leader in this top 32, I think is again remarkable. We also have 7 Lucci, 6 Star Deck 13 of the Black Yellow Luffy, 3 Nami, 2 copies of Star Deck 14 Luffy, 2 Bonney, 2 Reiju, 1 Enel, and 1 Zoro as well. And kind of my rule of thumb up to this has been generally that Lucci, both of the Star Deck Luffy's, Nami, and Bonney generally take up about 75% of the meta. This time they're taking about 67%, so about 2/3 of the topping list for this event. And so I do think that's a bit of a shift. Again, I know a lot of people are on Purple Luffy, but not a lot comparatively, right? It was the 5th most played leader that we had, but only 63% or 63 of them were in this event itself. So 1/8 of the Purple Luffys that entered this tournament got a top 32 finish, which again I think is pretty remarkable. So other than that, though, we do have pretty much the same matchup spread. The 5 leaders that I mentioned taking a little bit over 50%, about 2/3 with Purple Luffy included, and then a lot of kind of like scragglers, 1.5 leaders. Yamato, I know a lot of people have been playing it more recently towards this end of this meta. Didn't get a top for this one, but only 29 people are on it, so that might be a reason why for it. And again, there's all the data for this one. So we're going to go over the top placing list for each one of these leaders, and again, we are going to kind of mention maybe how they can change more than necessarily the build itself as we go into 8.5. So we're going to start off with our first place list. So, and a big congrats to Yonas for their first place with Black Yellow Luffy as well. I know he's been grinding this matchup and this leader quite a bit, essentially since Dallas, and seeing him in finals and just be able to have a pretty tight match as well, I think was fantastic. So big shout out to him on that one. And generally speaking, I think Black Yellow Luffy's been pretty understood for a while. We know essentially what the card pool is for most of the decks. One inclusion that I generally don't see is the Tempest Kick. So just the fact that you're able to use this to get a cycle for 1, I think is worth it in its own regard. The fact that it can also be like a -3, so if you need like another cost reduction, it's a fine choice. I think it's something that makes sense. Sometimes you have a hard time getting down to 10 cards into your trash, but also we are so flexible with having dead cards in our hand. We have our 5-cost Saba, which can cycle it out. We can use our leader effect to discard a card we'd never use to do so. And I think that I've seen some people Tempest like theory craft the Tempest Kick, and it's cool to see it work and get a first place finish with it as well. So looking at like the new cards we get from Yellow and Black, I don't think there's really anything that we get particularly for it. There's like the one like headcanon I've seen people think, like, do we want to play Hina? If you play Hina out, you can use this effect to put a Dawn underneath your leader, which means that you need like only one less. So if you have Hina on board, or if you bring Hina back from Gecko, that means that you can use it with your leader, put a Dawn underneath it, and then you can use like Ice Age, and then also then like Rocket Luffy to pop a 9 or less, right? So that sometimes comes up. I can see that, and I've been wanting to do like a Theorycraft Navy build since like Garp is a Navy card, right? Like we're playing like some Navy cards already. We've got Kuzan, we've got Garp, we have Ice Age, right? So seeing like a little bit more like when do we put brand new in, right? I think that's a fun like theory crafting thought, but in general, I think this is still going to be like the best and most prevalent version of Monkey.D.Luffy, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. I think that Dofi is going to be a rougher matchup for it, but even in the spread of decks, like it's not an impossible matchup for the deck, and you still have such a good matchup spread. I think this deck's going to be around for quite a bit. So here's a deck list. Congratulations to Yonas for their finish there. And then next up, we've got Purple Luffy, and we got Curly's version, but I also do want to shout out Chippy, if you guys don't know Chippy, one of our members, and also the deck builder, the whole programmer for the deck builder too. So congrats to Chippy for their build. They've got this build here where it's just a bunch of one-ofs, which is definitely how he likes the deck build. I can't do all the one-ofs of like the Bonney and with the Hiroshima and everything, but he's got a really interesting build too. And the one thing about Purple Luffy, and I'll mention it, that I think these decks are great, and these are generally what we're looking at in this format, but a lot of decks are going to be shifting once we get into 8 as well. So for Curly's version, I think this is pretty solid, and what I'd be pretty similar to be running. We do have like the Lin from OP08, which has been a really good add for the deck. Kaido's been like a staple for the deck since inception, and then Magellan I think has been getting a lot of value against some of these late game decks, like again like Lucci, Bonney in particular, right? If Bonney can't get to their late game plays, they're really not doing that much with what they're doing. Probably to help get some removal and be able to get to your 8 Dawn and then 10 Dawn a little bit quicker. I think all this is just pretty standard for what we're seeing. And then Sheep's Horn, which is going to get rotated out. So generally speaking, you guys probably already know about all the purple stuff that we're getting from the Star decks. Obviously having like a 7/8 that can play a 4/6 that's able to draw a card is really good. Uso Hachi's generally my thoughts are like the best card for any purple deck moving forward. The fact that you're able to just use this as a 2K, but also be able to rest a 5 or less, which can include a copy of like Sabo, Rebecca. This is going to make it so you have to be really conscious about what purple can do and how safe your blockers really are kind of moving forward. So I think that's going to be like a really good add. I've also just think that some people are going to continue to play this version of the deck. If you still like this version more than like the Straw Hat version for it, go for it. I think that's fine. I know it makes it tougher to play tech options like Poly and Magellan in like the Straw Hat version, because it does take a lot of deck space for it. But in general, I think Purple Luffy is going to be relevant moving forward. And again, it's really interesting to see it do so well this weekend too. So this is Curly's build. Congratulations there, and also congratulations to Chippy for their finish as well. All right, then moving forward, we've got Enel. So this is Sangoro's version of the deck. This is a pretty interesting build, but also I want to say, like, this happens so often where I make a tier list. I made a tier list for 8.5, and I said, you know what, I don't know if Enel is going to be able to keep up with the meta. I've just seen like it didn't really top this much, right? It didn't top a lot in the format that we have right now, and I can like show it off, like, right? It's not very present. It topped like the occasional events, but never consistently, and never anytime it did, it was like once, right? So we did have like a webcam case tournament like this top start of the format, but it just wasn't really relevant, right? I think that's safe to say at this point. And so I was like, I don't know if Enel is going to do well, and then bam, just tops again. So I think I probably was like a little bit too harsh, and I think I was underrating how good Enel could do in like a Dofi format if the deck can do well against it too. So which I think most people are are saying that it is going to be positive. So it's probably going to be around a little bit more often than I was expecting for it. But I do think this is a deck that will maybe get some more wins moving forward if people are less familiar about playing against it as well. I think there are some decisions for it, and we do get some good removal targets, right? We have a lot of mid-game removal for this deck that we didn't have previously. So we have Luffy, we've got Nami, and then we also have Gadatsu. We also have Reiju, which is kind of a mid-game removal, but only if they kind of rush you down. But the fact that I think like Gadatsu is really good for getting rid of 4 costs can be really helpful. Nami getting rid of 5 or 4 costs too. So I could see Enel like be really defensive and kind of maybe starve out a Dofi player. But I think that Rob Lucci is a really tough matchup for it because they can remove your high end a lot. Black Yo Luffy's probably about evenish for it. And it's going to be interesting to see just how Enel is going to do moving forward. But it does still have some good cards. I think generically it's still our best like generic yellow deck. I think that's safe to say. I think Katakuri is maybe not as consistent with Enel. And I don't think like Katakuri really gets anything from its starter deck. Unfortunately, I think just the yellow star deck is just kind of like one of the worst. So we do have like the Katakuri, which blocker is fine, and being able to the extra Dawn sometimes can be helpful, but I think it's just okay from there. So I will see how it now goes, and congratulations to Sangoro for their finish there. Next up, we've got Star Deck 14 Luffy, and as mentioned kind of earlier in this video, I think it's a deck that's kind of been falling off a little bit as we get deeper into this vanilla OP08. It's a deck that I didn't think was viable in the first place, then it did really well at the end of OP07, and I think a lot of people kept playing it off the wave of that. Generally speaking, I think Rob Lucci is still the better deck in general, but we do get like the new Jack card, which has been really helpful. And in general, like the other thing I want to mention is that a really good card for this deck will be the Cena. The fact that you can get that extra Dawn onto your leader, which needs the Dawn for its effect, is really great. The fact that you're able to use this to be an 8 cost and then 9 cost with your leader effect, which means that you're able to be a 6k leader really early into this game. You don't become 7k offensively because it's only during your opponent's turn for the Cena, but I think that will shift the kind of the gameplay for Luffy if it is viable in 8.5, which I think it will be, but it is going to be shifted a lot more to like the Navy archetype due to just the fact that you do need to you really want to be able to get those high costed cards out, which I think is important. So in general though, I think this is kind of more tempo oriented. You do have access to removal, but Lucci having just better removal cards, and also the fact that you get the additional -1 cost for free off the leader effect means that it's a little bit tougher for this deck to get some efficient trades with it. Some options I've seen with it is that we have like the Nico Robin adding at 3 copies, and also the Sanji. So both these cards are really great for removing mid-level cards, including like if Dofi's going to be around, Sanji's going to be a great card to essentially get rid of any Dofi target that you want, which I think is great. And then we just have kind of like the rest of our stuff. So we have the brand new, the Tashigi, the T-Bone. Brook is still like a really good card for the deck, and I'm going to be interested to see how Star Deck 14 Luffy does. Again, this is kind of an anomaly for the English version for this deck, where it wasn't very popular in Japan and then was way more popular in the English version, and it's going to be interesting to see again how it shifts. So this is Daniel's version of the build, and congratulations for their top finish there. The next up, we've got Bonney, and so this is Airborn's version of the deck. Real quick, I think the big card that this deck appreciates is like the Shanks. I think we're going to play a couple copies of this card moving forward into the 8.5. It's just generically okay, right? It's on play KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters, so good amount of resources there. It's a 9 cost, 11k, so it's a big card you want on the board, and I think that's great. So the rest of the green deck is a little bit more specific for the archetype for film. Katakuri is like generically okay, but if it didn't have like the film type thing, right? Uta's fine, but you have to trash like a film card for it. So, and it doesn't untap it. And if it untapped the Dawn, like maybe Bonney would think about it, but I think it's just going to be okay with it. So generally, I think Bonney's going to be the same-ish. I think we maybe rely more on Carrot if Dofi's going to be more present with it. I also think like the fact that you'll see this version doesn't have any copies of the 9-drop Zoro is peculiar. Also, we only have one copy of Basil Hawkins, which if you talk to anyone who plays this, they're like, oh yeah, it's four copies of this guaranteed. So the fact that we went down to one, I think is really peculiar for this build. We are playing like the Rosie package with also the Monkey.D.Luffy. Being able to use this Luffy with the Rosie to be able to essentially protect your board from cost reduction, destruction across the board is really great. It just means like if your opponent like this protects a card when it gets reduced to 3 or less, and then this also protects your Luffy. So like both these work really well with each other. And then just kind of the generically good like Dofi and Supernova package too. So again, this deck doesn't change a lot. I think this is a pretty unique build, all things considered, with the deck choices. And I'm going to look forward to seeing Bonney shift to our 8.5 meta. I think it's going to be pretty viable in that one too. So again, this is this is Airborn's version. Congratulations for their finish there. Next up, we got Reiju. So this is Edux 13's version of the deck. This deck has been, again, pretty present since Red Purple exited this meta, not by choice, or not by its own choice, I suppose. But this has been, we've been seeing a lot more of this Foxy Pirates package, and I think like this leader has a lot of room for like some really cool interactions. But the biggest issue is that like you have to commit so much deck space to your Vinsmoke family package in general, right? We have 16 copies between the Ichis and the Reijus. We have our Porsche now. If you have to play 4 of those and 4 of the Ginas and the Choppers to be able to get more consistency on your searches. We don't really have room for text. We got like 1 Black Maria and 1 copy of the Pudding, and then also the tech card of like Black Bug. This card I don't see very often, but the fact that it can interact with a Sabo makes this card really strong. I do think that moving forward, I would expect Uso Hachi to be a little bit more popular. Sometimes this deck has a little bit of an issue getting to 8 Dawn, but I still think this is like a better option for it. And then the rest of like the purple and blue stuff, I don't think it really changes anything. I don't think we play Buggy. I don't think we play the rest of this. I mean, you could maybe play Law to bounce something, but I don't think that's generally worth it either. And then we don't really care about Dawn, so Teach isn't like super important. But in general, I think Reiju still is fine. It might be there's a good chance that Dofi is just like a better version of it, where they can just put a lot more bodies on board and be aggressive. But I also think like 7 cost Ichi can do a lot of work in the matchup, where you can get some early pressure and removal of their board and make it harder for them to really set up too. So we'll see what Reiju does the next little bit. I don't think it changes a lot. I think Uso Hachi is a great card for it, but it won't change a lot from there. So this is Edux's version of the build. And then next up we've got Rob Lucci. So this is QB's version of it for it. And again, we generally are not used to Rob Lucci being on this tail end of the video, but just a lot of decks are doing just incrementally better. It's still got an X1 finish, right? But we just had a lot of variety. Like the top 8 variety for this one the X1 variety for this one is pretty good, right? I think we had 7 different leaders in the top 11 places, which is pretty remarkable if you ask me. So, but Rob Lucci hasn't really changed a lot. One change I've seen more recently is people are off Suru in the build. They've just been using Helmeppo only, and using your 2Ks for more of like the Khalifas, for the Kakus, as well as the Who's Who. So that's been a big change. Monkey.D.Luffy's always been kind of a tech choice for this, which still I think works and maybe potentially helps out your Black Yellow Luffy matchups. And then also we do have the Kaido 1 copy. I think just running a 1 copy of this card makes sense. There's some good times where you can just play this out. If you're on Odd Curve, this is really great a lot of the time. Sometimes it's better than a Moria play. And then we also have like the 1 copy of Isho too. So 4 Tempest Kicks and 4 Ice Sages, man, these are I hate seeing these cards at this point, right? There's just so much good removal that you can do with these, and it makes it feel like I could play like a 10 cost, and I can, unless it has like protection, I'm always worried that it's going to get bopped in some way or the other. But in general, I think Lucci's still going to be very good. Has like a lot of removal. Dofi might be faster than it at sometimes, but I think you can have a lot of like this card is still like one of the best removal cards in the game, especially paired up with our leader effect, and I expect it to do a lot of work still moving forward. So, but this is the build from QB, and congratulations for their finish there. And then last up, we've got Zoro. We got Aidan's version of the deck, and this has been like the aggro deck of this format. It's been like popping up moderately. I think it's been getting like an average of a top or 2 every event. So this is the top for this one, and we kind of know what the deck looks like. It is really susceptible to just the pressure that and removal that Rob Lucci gets, which is really present. It has sometimes a hard time against like Black Yellow Luffy if you don't, if you know, you're not fast enough to really prevent them from getting their value. But you know, I still think this is has some good matchups. I think this Chopper, and like you can just build a board like incredibly fast with this deck, and the fact that you can also just Jombe for a win against like a Black Yellow Luffy if they're not expecting it can help a lot too. So I don't have a lot to say. The red cards we get aren't really conducive for Zoro. They're very kind of archetype to Whitebeard leaders and kind of removal and kind of like mid to late game, when this is kind of just a straight aggro deck too. So, but this is the build from Aidan, and congratulations for their finish there. And that's going to be it though for this one. Again, if you guys want any of the deck lists, you can make sure to check them out on the website. Congratulations to all our top 32. And again, I'm looking forward to switching to 8.5 as well. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.